Hello, South Africa, and welcome. My name is Kamogelo Dipoko. Welcome to DPSA Batupele TV. As usual, this is the platform that gives you insights of the workings of the public sector. The DPSA hosted its inaugural National Labour Relations Conference themed Building State Capacity Through Professionalization of Labour Relations in Public Service Sector. The two-day conference was held at the Department of Agriculture's Tsitsikamma Auditorium in Pretoria. On this episode and two following episodes, we will bring you highlights of the conference, its purpose, speeches, views shared, and outcomes expected. The DPSA National Labour Relations Conference was attended by delegates from across the country, including union representatives, the DG, Ms. Yoliswa Makasi, and the Minister of Public Service and Administration, Ms. Notkolo Kivet. Those who could not attend in person were treated to a live stream on DPSA's social media platforms. Various delegates of the conference shared their expectations of the DPSA National Labour Relations Conference. We start off with Priscilla Tsotso Sihole, Acting Deputy Director General of Corporate Support Services at the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, where the conference was held.
Such a great honor to be hosting the National Labour Relations Conference. The reason is twofold, or maybe I could just say multiple-fold, in the sense that this conference is themed on the building state capacity through the professionalization of labor relations in the public service. So there's an element of harmonization of labor relations within the organization itself. But the second most important element is that this is a new building of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. This is our head office. And it has been designed such that there is interaction between officials that are housed in this department, in this whole building itself. And on top of that, we are in the process of reaching out we are constantly reaching out and building a healthy, harmonious work environment for the public service. So it is indeed a great honor to be hosting this conference.
The role of the DPSA as the agent employer of government, of making sure that there's peace, there's a peaceful environment, there's a productive environment, and the employees of the state are well catered for emotionally, socio-economically, and all of that. So it's about the holistic well-being of the employees of government. And the logic is that if we take care of the employees, then they should work maximally, produce maximally, and therefore deliver better public goods and services. So it's not about a portfolio issue. Mm-hmm. It's about the role that the DPSA in its entirety plays in creating a conducive working environment for government employees so that they deliver maximally.
Director General of the DPSA, Yoliswa Makasi, also provided her input of the objectives and expected outcomes of the first National Labour Relations Conference and the theme.
The focus of the conference is really around professionalizing the labour relations environment in the public service. And so we're having discussions around how we move from where we are to the future, a future which is hopefully much more bearable for public servants who have to work under quite extreme conditions. But the topic for the day is really focusing around building peace, labor peace within the public service. It's very important. Employees are our greatest asset in the public service. They are responsible to deliver public services. How do we ensure that there's good relations, there's peace? It's very important. And how do we professionalize that environment?
You are gathered at the new Dalat building, which is our new head office, which was designed to address modern working conditions, where employees and employer can interact at refreshment stations. Now, I was waiting to hear the program director saying, in case of emergency, just look for the cabbage patch next to the onions, next to the tomatoes, because that is how we have structured our garden in line with the mandate of this organization. The government MTSF Priority 1 focuses on the development of a capable, ethical, and developmental state. This is where the labor relations function contributes greatly to inculcate the ethical morality of the workforce. The national framework towards the professionalization of the public service framework was also approved by Cabinet 2 years ago on the 19th of October 2022. And it is intended to ensure that only qualified and competent individuals are appointed into positions of authority in pursuit of a transformed, professional, ethical, capable, and developmental public sector. Clearly, I am preaching to the converted because you are the custodians of all that. Now, this framework represents significant public sector reforms that position government towards the achievement of its vision for 2030 in terms of the National Development Plan. Now, building state capacity is an effort by government to professionalize the public sector at an administration level. This is where you come in, because labor relations play an administrative role in the public service by ensuring that labor relations, as far as possible, are conducted in a non-adversarial climate and in a non-partisan manner. It also needs to ensure that the employees in the department are fully engaged, as this will enhance productivity. Employee advocacy is driven by labor relations. Therefore, there is a need for knowledge on overall human resource policies and processes. Professionalization of the public service entails changing the attitudes of individuals, their behavior and performance towards serving the public with empathy. The important elements of fostering constructive relations, collective bargaining, conflict resolution, disputes, complaints, disciplinary processes are at the heart of labor relations. The professionalization of labor relations in the public service requires fair and consistent application of rules and adherence to constitutional values and principles. We know what happens when there is absence of fairness and consistency. And we are also guided by the Batubile principles. They don't only look at the citizens, but they also look into the internal stakeholders, which are our employees. Government is also at a point of emphasizing ethical conduct, which will require partnerships in different units internally and working together in different departments, ensuring that this space is professionalized. I appreciate the work done by government to date in terms of the development of the framework on professionalization of the labor relations. By doing that, we should also at some point be able to deliberate on issues surrounding the risks associated with the work that the labor relations practitioners are faced with. While we are going to implement the resolutions of this conference, in fact, while we are going to craft the resolutions for this conference, let us also take into consideration the training aspect due to the changing trends in jurisprudence. You are now most welcome and well received at this conference and at the Dalat head office. May you have a productive 2 days with resolutions that will continue to advance the development of a capable, ethical, and developmental state.
The government is increasingly working on the professionalization of the public service. So the primary question for us was, what is a professionalized labor relations in the public service? And we thought this is the opportune moment to deal with that issues, because when you deal with issues of professionalization of the public service, which I'm going to go into details in a later presentation I'll make, you deal with the whole issues of the wellness of the employees, relations between employees and the employer, the generic socio-economic and the humanistic well-being of people. So that's what we thought we should do. So in which context is this conference happening? So number one, we are in a context of increasing cost of living. And that has a direct impact on labor relations, how we relate to one another institutionally, but also as managers and supervisees. We are in a, besides the increasing cost of living, we are also in an environment where there's a shrinking of the national fiscus. So on the one hand, there's a cost of living increasing. On the other hand, the national fiscus is decreasing, which is a serious contradiction, which has got some serious possibilities of causing some serious tensions within the public service. So the question is, how do we deal with that through an appropriate labor relations? The third context within which we are operating in is the proliferation of coalition governments, particularly at the local government sphere. But even there, you are not limited to that. It will always be at the local government. So there are strong possibilities that even at the provincial and national level, sooner or later, you might have coalition government. And the basic question is, how do you engage at that level when there's quite a conflated centers of power? How do you deal with issues of labor relation at that point? And then there is also a proliferation. We're in a context where quite a number of unions are emerging. Proliferations of unions that also, which in a way sometimes it makes it difficult to negotiate, because instead of negotiating with two unions that represent 20 people, you end up negotiating with 20 people, 20 unions that represent 8 people. So those are the issues that in this environment we thought is one of the issues that we need to deal with. And then there's also, in all of these things of the increase of cost of living, there is a high expectation for government to do more. And that is where the issue of government efficacy becomes very important, because with the increased cost of living, government is expected to do more. So the question is, how do we professionalize the workspace so that we can do more with the little that we have? And that requires that we engage one another. The solutions are not only limited to government. The next contextual issue is that it is imperative for government to improve its performance. And for government to improve its performance, the workplace must be very solid. And on that scope, if the workspace is very solid, what is it that we need to do as labor relations practitioners in partnership with organized labor? And then, so what we are trying to say is that there's a great need to professionalize labor relations practitioners within the state, but also those that represent the employees from organized labor.
Our leadership, our management style must ensure that there is a learning environment in the public service. Yes, we provide bursaries for people. Yes, we give people an opportunity to do skills development courses. But if you do not give people an opportunity to stretch their capabilities through the actual work that they are doing every day, if you don't throw them in a deep end and allow them to swim and to discover how to swim if they don't know how to swim, with your guidance and your support, what kind of a public service are we going to leave behind when we retire? We are an aging public service. A lot of us are facing retirement. What kind of a public service are we going to leave? Are we going to be those retirees who want to be called back at 70 to come back and resolve challenges of the public service, which we've had so many years to resolve when we're in the public service ourselves? So I think, colleagues, it's important that we take the issue of creating a learning environment. And I know that learning is a two-way process. It's the manager creating the space to learn, and it's the person who should be learning, being in a zone and a space to learn. So, but we must never give up on people. We have to create that environment for them to be able to learn. I don't want a labor relations report that just tells me about grievances and complaints. I also want to know proactively, what are we doing to build and strengthen relations in the organization, not just to be processing grievances and complaints. Yes, we have a responsibility to do that, but beyond that, at a strategic level, what are the things that we're handling? What are the issues that we're dealing with that on their own, if we deal with these issues in a proactive manner, they will help us not to even have some of the grievances that we have in the organization. How are we building peace in the organization? Because resolving grievances and resolving complaints is not building peace. By that time, there's already no peace. So how do we ensure that we work together to build peace in the organizations where we work is very important.
We interacted with about 700 submissions. And in one of the submissions, it was a very huge, long submission. I think it was perhaps in one of the municipalities or in one of the provinces, I can't remember. The person was telling a very sad story. He was saying that here, our HR does not exist. It has been captured by the unions. They decide who should be hired. And I say that we need to do something as the unions about that type of a situation. But in all this, colleagues, the moral of the story is that for us to make any progress in building state capacity, government and the unions need to work closely together in a shared commitment to make this country work. We are not in good shape. And unless we take certain decisions and make certain commitments and sacrifice to some certain extent, and indeed hold, because as part of the civil society, the unions, you salvage the country in many ways. And you need to continue doing that. Unless we hold hands, we may run the risk of losing so many things, and it would be unfortunate if we could lose all those things. What is the moral of the story? Let's work together. There are lessons elsewhere, and as I was seated there listening to all the colleagues as they were talking, I was so happy when I hear almost all the colleagues talking about the fact that they are part of the stream on professionalization. That is wonderful, because it is something that we must never ever allow a situation where it will just fizzle out like any other initiatives, because professionalizing the public sector is but one of the most important interventions that seeks to build the capacity of the state. For so long, for God's sake, we haven't really been doing much insofar as Chapter 13 of the NDP is concerned. And there is no way that the country can get anywhere if the capacity of the state is at its lowest. There's no way. So that is why we've been arguing that perhaps when we talk about reviewing the NDP, we shouldn't change it. We should just take Chapter 13 and make Chapter 1, because it's a foundation. It's a foundation for everything. Investors will want to come and invest in a country where institutions of the state works. So I'm happy insofar as your participation in professionalization work stream is concerned. But also let me conclude by saying that how we conceptualize professionalization is very important. In the document that we work on, we debated the concept of professionalization, and we avoided to be influenced by a neoliberal literature. We refuse to be influenced by a literature that seeks to define professionalization in elite terms. We are saying that in the context of the public sector, professionalization of the public service should just simply be understood as the commitment to institutionalize capability within the state. But also what is critically important is the ethical disposition of those who are in the employ of the state. And that ethical disposition ought to be shaped by public administration norms and standards. And also, we say that a professional public service is conscious of ethical impulses and moral vision of democracy. In other words, professionalizing, it is not about creating elitism. It is not about professional class. It is about institutionalizing capability. And a very important question was asked: at what level should we start? We need to start at all levels. Right? This thing of saying that only people who are in a particular occupational occupational field can actually be professionalized is false in terms of our definition of professionalization, because it is about commitment to institutionalize capability for an institution to function optimally. And also remember that an institution cannot be one person. An institution cannot just only be a particular category of people at a particular level. No. An institution is about everybody. Right? It is about everybody. And also we included the following important variables of professionalization: competence, conscientiousness, ingenuity, agility, integrity, and altruism. These are the variables that we actually talk about, right? Lastly, perhaps another important project that we could think about as the project of ourselves as partners ought to be in the area of training around preparing ourselves for the reality of heightened technological world, right? To conscientize each other about the reality of the future of work.
The Eastern Cape Office of the Premier has a system, a recruitment system. They created it. So we responded to your cry. So we have cut the master listing part of the recruitment. So you can copy from us.
From our side, I think the responsibility that we have at this conference is to make sure that we completely clarify all of the things that are necessary for us to be a professional public service. And those things include how we interact with the professionalization framework, how we also understand as public servants that the issue of labor relations does not only arise when there are wage negotiations, when there are disputes, when there are any other matter, but there's also an issue of how we engage with each other, how we also work with each other as both at the employee as colleagues, but also as how we as Minister mentioned earlier, as how we live the values, the constitutional values and principles in the Constitution. So that means when we talk about Batupili principles, we're not talking about the principles when we deliver services only, but also how we treat each other with respect, with mutual assistance and so forth, and how we collaborate. So when we live here, we are hoping that the organized labor leaders that are here at this conference will then also come to the party and understand that the negotiations that they go to are not only about wages, but they're also about the conditions of services that we have, that we need, how we deal with the mental issues that are now becoming prevalent in our society, how we deal with the employee health and wellness, how we deal with both physical, visible, as well as non-visible disabilities, so that we have reasonable accommodation for employees, so that when someone acquires a disability in the public service, it doesn't mean that they have now stopped being useful in the public service, but they can reasonably be accommodated. And we have to work together to assist the employer, as government is called in these negotiation circles, to understand that it is how we then realign ourselves to live and be responsive and be agile enough to understand and live the ethos of reasonable accommodation. So those are some of the things that we're trying to achieve. But most importantly, we're also trying to look at how we can engage with organized labor, with all the partners that we have from the human resource part of things, on how we make sure that the members of labor go to, who are employees of the public service, go to acquire and develop new skills for 4th IR, for modernization. We have about 2.1 billion that we spend annually in the public service on skills development, but we're not seeing the return on investment. So we have to partner with labor to make sure that we channel their members to be in the right skills, to fill the skill shortages that we have, to address the challenges, and make sure that we actually spend the budgeted 4 billion rand on skills development, that we only currently spend half of that. So those are some of the things that we really think we must achieve from this conference.
Now that the stage has been set on the why of the first National Labour Conference, in the next episode, we take you into the conference itself. For more DPSA news, visit dpsa.org.za and look out for the DPSA Batupili podcast on Spotify and YouTube. From me, Gamo, till the next episode, #Batupili.